Straight ahead, sudden impact. A lawsuit by the Justice Department targeted a 24-year-old state law allowing dreamers to pay in-state tuition at public universities. Why Texas settled the case, and critics say they may not be able to overturn it. Also, working together, sheriff's departments across Texas will have to work with ICE to identify criminals in their jails who are in the U.S. illegally. Why critics say this is unnecessary. Also, Made in America, how a new program by the government could help small businesses here in North Texas and nationwide. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ken Molestina in for Jack Fink today. Get your fix for Texas politics right here with Eye on Politics on CBS News Texas. Starts right now. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Eye on Politics. We have got lots to get to on what has become a very busy week. I want to begin now with the lawsuit by the Trump administration against the state of Texas. It's over what was described as an unconstitutional state law that gave dreamers in-state tuition while attending public universities. Hours later, Attorney General Ken Paxton settled the lawsuit, ending the state's 24-year-old law called the Texas Dream Act. In a statement, he said ending this discriminatory and un-American provision is a major victory for Texas. Governor Greg Abbott issued a statement on X saying, in part, quote, in-state tuition for illegal immigrants in Texas has ended. Texas is permanently enjoined from providing in-state tuition for illegal immigrants. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said the Justice Department commends Texas leadership and AG Ken Paxton for swiftly working with us to halt a program that was treating Americans like second-class citizens in their own country. DOJ said the problem was students in Texas who are not citizens have been receiving a discount on tuition at state universities while citizens from out of state had to pay more. Sarah Jenkins takes a look now at the state law in legal crosshairs in this week's brief.
A 2 decades old law allowed undocumented immigrants who live in Texas to pay in-state tuition. In 2001, Texas passed a law allowing those referred to at times as dreamers to become eligible for in-state tuition if they meet certain residency criteria. The DOJ said that policy is unconstitutional. Paxton agreed, and in a legal filing, asked the court to issue a permanent injunction prohibiting Texas from enforcing the law. Texas lawmakers have made previous attempts to change the law, but it has never made it out of a legislative session. 24 other states and Washington, D.C. offer in-state tuition for dreamers. Florida did too, but repealed the 2014 law earlier this year. It's one of the latest efforts by the Trump administration to crack down on immigration into the country. President Trump issued 2 executive orders to prevent, quote, benefits or preferential treatments from going to undocumented immigrants.
Well, critics are blasting the DOJ lawsuit and the state's response. Jack Fink spoke with Democratic State Representative and Chairman of the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus, Ramon Romero Jr. of Fort Worth.
I think that this is one of the worst acts of cowardice I've ever seen since I've been in office, Jack. I cannot imagine a time like this where the Attorney General and the Department of Justice coordinate and collaborate to go around the state of Texas's wishes, the legislature's wishes. We just came out of session. We've seen that while there were bills filed, they were not near the top of the list of priorities for our state. I think that this state still believes in and supports dreamers like those 20,000 students that will now be affected. And I can't think of any other way to say it, Jack. This was cowardice at its worst. I stand behind those dreamers. I think that they are the bright spot of our state and our country, people that despite the circumstances have figured out a way to rise to the top of their class and now are in a university. So I'm with them. I hope that there's some legal avenue right now. It looks gloomy, I should say.
I was just going to ask you, how big of a surprise was this yesterday when the Trump Justice Department filed this lawsuit against Texas, and what really can you do to challenge this?
Right now, our legal teams are saying that there's not a lot that we can do to challenge this. Clearly, there's people that are lawyers that are putting their heads together and trying to figure out what all can be done.
And I just want to follow up on a point that you made as far as why your legal teams don't think there's much of an avenue to challenge this.
I would say this is as unprecedented as anything that I've ever seen, where an attorney general would just put up his hands and say, I settle.
Well, Jack also spoke to Republican State Representative Mike Alcott of Aledo. He praised the state's response and was among the lawmakers who filed a bill to end the state's law during the past session, but failed.
I'm obviously delighted. I filed legislation to do just that, and I'm not the first to do that, by the way. I think that there's been a number of legislators throughout, at least for the last 14 years, as far as I know, have tried to repeal that legislation that was passed back in 2001. And I'm just happy that it got done at the executive level. As a matter of fact, I think there was actually, it wasn't just I that filed legislation to ban in-state tuition. There was several others that did that in the Texas House, but unfortunately, they all died in the higher ed committee. And so it was kind of nice timing that as soon as 2 days after the session was over, it actually is done in another manner, which is I think I'm very happy about that, about the outcome. I'm very happy with the work that Attorney General Ken Paxton did in working with the Department of Justice to help make that happen.
One Democratic lawmaker I spoke with said that he called this an embarrassment for the state because the Attorney General just, in his words, surrendered and gave up.
So I don't, obviously I have a different opinion than that. I don't think he surrendered. He simply recognized the law, that what we've been doing since 2001 is unconstitutional. It actually violates the Illegal Immigration Reform Act and Immigration Responsibility Act of 1996, specifically Section 505, that actually addresses this and says that it's illegal to do that. The only way you can actually offer, my understanding is the only way you can offer in-state tuition to illegal aliens is if you offer that same rate to citizens living outside your state, so that they are given the same shot that illegal aliens does. And that's one of the things that the 1996 Immigration Act did, was to say that you can't treat U.S. citizens as second-class citizens and treat them less favorably than you do people in this country unlawfully.
Well, staying on the topic of illegal immigration, there's a new bill that Governor Abbott will sign. It requires sheriff's departments across the entire state of Texas that run county jails to work with ICE to check people booked into their jail to see if they're in the U.S. illegally and have a hold on them placed by the feds. Until now, it's been voluntary, and federal records show Ellis, Parker, Rockwall, and Tarrant counties are already participating in what is known as the 287G agreements. Counties will be required to take part in one of three programs now, serving administrative warrants in the jails, allowing local and state authorities to execute civil immigration warrants on behalf of the federal government, and allowing local and state law enforcement to conduct limited immigration enforcement activities. Now here's Jack's interview with Republican State Representative David Spiller of Jacksboro, who sponsored the bill in the House.
What it's going to do is it's going to allow all Texas sheriffs and counties within the state that operate a jail or contract for the operation of a jail to cooperate with our federal partners, cooperate with ICE to, and our focus has been primarily the in-jail model. People that are already arrested on other charges, we're just asking them to be able to identify the folks that are there, that are arrested, to see if they have ICE warrants, to see if they have detainers, to see if they have warrants for removal, and to participate in that federal database to identify those folks so they're not inadvertently bonded out and released on the street to commit other offenses and crimes.
You've called this a public safety bill.
I believe it is, absolutely.
Why?
The unprecedented number of illegal aliens that have come across that either are convicted felons, rapists, murderers, child molesters, things like that, that have come into our community, terrorists that have come into our community, and they are among us, and they are picked up on other charges sometimes. We need to identify those people. We need to know if they have those other charges. We need to know what their criminal history is. And unfortunately, we have some counties, some larger, that choose to turn a blind eye. They probably suspect that they may have warrants and other things there, but they choose not to check it. What we're asking them to do is to do their job respectfully and check and cooperate with our federal partners to make sure that we identify the folks that are a public safety threat to us. That's the focus of SBA.
You mentioned President Trump, and Democrats have criticized this. They didn't vote for this, and they have said that basically they believe this is just a messaging bill to please President Trump. What do you say to that?
Well, no, this is very much needed, and I've been working on this with other stakeholders for the past year and a half before President Trump was ever elected back into office.
Well, Democratic State Rep Ramon Romero Jr. of Fort Worth voted against the bill and is now calling it unnecessary.
For over 2 sessions now, we have penalized sheriffs and sheriff's officers if they don't turn someone over to ICE. So we already know that there's coordination in county jails with ICE to ensure that those folks are being checked. We know that sheriffs around our state are not letting people go. I voted against it, 1, because I don't think that it's necessary, 2, because it gives rise to the idea that people can create a model like Sheriff Arpaio did in Maricopa County in Arizona, which allows those officers to go out in the field and act as ICE officers. If all we did was warrant service officer model or jail model, which is what there is in Tarrant County, we would ensure that no person that has a criminal record or has an ICE detainer would leave. That's really all we should do. But this bill allows for a very dangerous task force model that if people want to take that model on, which I hope that the people that are watching your show, Jack, are ensuring that their county does not take on that model. And if they do, just be aware that that is a very dangerous precedent that's already been shown. It's why President Obama did away with it after he brought it on board. And it's not been brought back by any president until Donald Trump said, we want to do this again. So I don't like what can be done, but I also know at the same time that it's not necessary because sheriffs are already doing this across the entire state of Texas.
Well, coming up a little later, how a new Made in America initiative by the government is now aimed at helping small businesses. But next, another look at bills set to become law in Texas. All of it when Eye on Politics comes right back. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. The 89th Texas legislative session is now in the history books. Last Monday, both the House and the Senate adjourned after passing hundreds of bills. Governor Abbott didn't waste any time hitting the road to sign some of his top priorities this session. They include what he calls the strongest bail reform in Texas history. The new laws are aimed at keeping violent repeat offenders locked up. Among the measures, a constitutional amendment that voters will have to approve in November that will require judges to deny bail to defendants charged with violent crimes such as murder, rape, and human trafficking once the state provides evidence that they are a danger to society. Prosecutors will also have more say on a defendant's bail.
There's going to be some leftist judge, progressive judge in Harris County who still may grant bail. The prosecutor, unlike before, now has the right to immediately appeal that disgusting decision.
Well, the governor also signed House Bill 2, which injects $8.5 billion in new money into the state's public schools. Nearly half of it will go to teacher pay raises.
We got to go about this process of making sure we are attracting and keeping the best teachers, because those best teachers will lead to better education outcomes for our students.
And businesses in the hemp industry and some veterans right now urging the governor to veto Senate Bill 3, which outlaws THC products starting September 1st. At the Texas Capitol, opponents of the bill delivered boxes, as you can see there, containing more than 100,000 signatures asking Abbott to reject the measure. He says he'll review this bill just like he does every piece of legislation that crosses his desk. The governor has until June 22nd to veto bills. Now to the battle over redistricting in Tarrant County, the largest Republican county in the U.S. A new federal lawsuit is asking a court to prevent the county from implementing a new districting map over claims of racial discrimination. Last week, commissioners approved the new precinct boundaries. Plaintiffs claim, quote, Map 7 surgically moves minority voters from District 2 to District 1, while just as carefully moving Anglo voters from District 1 to District 2. The resulting map in a county in which the majority of residents are non-Anglo has 3 Anglo majority precincts and 1 majority minority precinct.
The legal question here is whether it's partisan or racial gerrymandering. Partisan gerrymandering is basically legal. Racial gerrymandering is not.
Republican County Judge Tim O'Hare says the purpose of redistricting is political, to gain an additional Republican seat on the court. Another Republican commissioner, Matt Krause, agreed.
I just don't want those in here who are opposed to the redistricting effort to be blindsided or disillusioned that when what they've been told by their leaders, that this is blatantly unconstitutional, it's race, it doesn't turn out to be like that.
Well, the federal lawsuit alleges this mid-census redistricting violates the Constitution and the U.S. Voting Rights Act. Coming up, how a new Made in America initiative by the federal government is aimed at boosting small businesses. All of it coming up when Eye on Politics returns. The head of the Small Business Administration is touring the country to let small businesses know about a new Made in America manufacturing initiative. SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler recently came to Arlington, where she visited DSG Technology, which manufactures the world's first multi-environment ammunition. The company says the ammo targets combat divers and engages underwater targets from aerial platforms. 3 members of Congress from North Texas joined this recent tour. Republicans Beth Van Duyne, Roger Williams, and Jake Elzy. Here is part of the Jack Fink's interview with SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler. Have a listen.
Small business is big business in America. There's no bigger fan of small business than President Trump, and I'm so honored to serve as the administrator of the SBA, particularly at a time when we are returning to Made in America, and that's why we kicked off this national manufacturing tour. I'm thrilled to be in Texas. We just visited DSG. It's an incredible story of innovation and national security. And this is what makes America strong, is when we have small businesses that can thrive, when big government gets out of the way, but also when the government provides solutions to make sure that small business can thrive. And that's why in the House and Senate we're introducing a small business act that will ensure that manufacturers can get up to double the loan size, up to $10 million, so that we can grow manufacturing in America. Because small manufacturers make up 99% of all manufacturers in America.
What are businesses telling you that is holding them back?
There's several things. First of all, we've got to have the certainty of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act being made permanent. Businesses want to know that 2017 TCJA is going to be extended. They want regulations to get out of the way. Businesses, small businesses in particular, have been crushed by the last 4 years of regulation. We know that the Biden administration enacted over $5 trillion of regulation that disproportionately impacted small businesses and manufacturers. So the SBA is working on a deregulatory effort.
What impact do small businesses have as far as the tariffs are concerned?
Well, first of all, the SBA is taking a proactive step to make sure that small businesses know that there are about 1 million suppliers in this country already. We saw businesses last year already starting to move to onshore, realizing that our $1.2 trillion trade deficit with the world was unsustainable and risks our national security. It drives up inflation. But we've published a Make Onshoring Great Again portal that will connect small businesses to a range of manufacturers, over 1 million of them, to help onshore their supply chain so that they know that there are domestic suppliers of what they might be sourcing unnecessarily from China. So we're being part of the solution along with expanded access to capital.
Well, Jack also spoke with Representatives Van Duyne, Elzy, and Williams about this program and how they believe tax cuts will help businesses.
It means a lot, and the fact of the matter is it shows how small business can be big business in America if regulations are left alone with them. But this situation we have with President Trump and being very business friendly, things like the tax cuts are what small business is waiting on. Regulations, we talked about that. Small business waiting on a reduction of regulations. And 100% expensing is a huge deal for businesses as we go across the country. So we are in the golden age, and we need to, the Senate needs to pass the bill, the President will sign it, and Main Street will continue to go and grow.
You look at what the innovation is, and the American innovation is to be able to be unleashed. And I think the research and development that we're also supporting in this, one big beautiful bill is really going to be important to small companies like this. The 199A pass-through to make sure that their taxes are not doubled from 21% to 39%. These are things that really, when you talk to these people, are really important. We want to make sure for national security, specifically with this firm, that we keep having onshored in our country and in protecting not only our citizens but also our troops around the globe.
Congressman Ellison.
Well, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act's tax cuts needs to be made permanent, but what you're seeing here is the Texas miracle writ large, and companies coming to Texas because we had a regulatory environment that was predictable, and now President Trump is trying to make that the same nationwide, and that's extremely important for onshoring and for national security, as this company that we're at today makes ammo for our American warfighters. So, and they're doing it on their own. So, Tax Cut and Jobs Act, one big beautiful bill, they're all going hand in hand to make the business environment even better.
Well, the Senate is now considering the tax and spending cuts approved by the House. Don't forget, you can watch Jack's full interviews from today's show on our CBS Texas YouTube channel. Once there, just please hit the subscribe button while you're there and give us a thumbs up. That's going to do it for Eye on Politics for this Sunday. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you again next week when Jack returns. We're all listening here at CBS News Texas. Have a great one.